your eyes tell me to pursue, but you say look, yeah, but don't tell.
15 solos, not 15 songs, 15 specific moments, a guitar run, a keyboard riff, a held note, where one musician reached all the way into something true and changed R&B forever. You've heard some of these. You've felt all of them without knowing what to call it. But here's what most people don't know. Every single one of these solos didn't just define a moment. It redirected music. It gave other artists a language they didn't have the day before. It became the before and after point in what was possible. By the time we get to number 1, you'll understand exactly what I mean by they changed everything. Number 15, Ernie Isley, That Lady, the Isley Brothers, 1973. In 1973, a 19-year-old kid walked into a recording studio in Los Angeles and played a guitar solo that nobody believed was real. You've heard That Lady by the Isley Brothers, that hypnotic phase-shifting riff that sounds like it came from another dimension. That was Ernie Isley. And when the label first heard it, their response was confusion. This doesn't sound like It's Your Thing. It doesn't have saxophones. It sounds like rock. How do we sell this? Ernie had done something with no category yet. Here's what most people don't know. Jimi Hendrix had literally lived in the Isley family home in New Jersey back in 1963, sleeping down the hall from a 12-year-old Ernie before Ernie had even picked up a guitar. He watched, he listened, and a decade later, he pulled Hendrix's entire blues rock language directly into R&B in a way nobody had done before. The solo reached number 6 on the Hot 100 and number 2 on the R&B chart. But then the rumors started. Had to be a session player, had to be a leftover Hendrix tape, because nobody expected a teenager to sound like God on a Stratocaster. They embraced it eventually, Ernie said years later. They didn't put me on the magazine covers, but they were listening. 50 years later, Kendrick Lamar personally showed up at Ronald Isley's house to ask permission to sample it. That tells you everything about what a real solo does. Number 14, Junior Walker, Shotgun. Junior Walker and the All-Stars, 1965. Some solos announce themselves. This one comes at you like a freight train with no brakes. Junior Walker and the All-Stars. Shotgun. And within the first 4 seconds, Junior Walker is playing his saxophone like he's trying to set the room on fire from the inside. No warm-up, no introduction, just that raw, breathless sax riff tearing through you before your brain even registers the song has started. And if you've heard this at a cookout, you know, the one where somebody's uncle turned it up and cleared the floor, you already know what I'm talking about. But here's the thing about Junior Walker that most people don't know. Motown didn't know what to do with him. Berry Gordy was building a polished, sophisticated image. Junior Walker was the opposite of polished. His sound was raw and honking and unfiltered, more juke joint than supper club. They almost passed on him entirely. And then the singer hired for the session didn't show up. Berry Gordy turned to Walker. Walker hesitated. Then he went up to the mic and, in his own words, "Just holler." Gordy kept it. Here's here's the other thing. That famous gunshot sound at the top of the record, it's not a gunshot. It's a guitarist accidentally kicking his amplifier during a Funk Brothers session. They left it in. Shotgun hit #1 on the R&B chart and #4 on the pop chart. And what Junior Walker did, playing the saxophone as lead instrument and lead vocalist simultaneously, permanently changed the understood role of the horn in popular music. Before this, the sax section was background. After Junior Walker, the saxophone could be the whole story. Real talk. Only 9% of you are subscribed. That hurts. We're spending hours digging through archives, fact-checking every detail, bringing these stories back to life. And if you're watching this far, you clearly care. So hit subscribe. It's free and takes 2 seconds. Now, to my subscribers, barely any of you have joined the membership. And honestly, that stings even more. You know the work we put in. You keep coming back. If these videos have ever made you feel something, if this music means something to you, join the membership. It's $1 coffee a month, and it's the only way we keep this going. Let's build this together. All right, back to it. Number 13, King Curtis, Respect, Aretha Franklin, 1967. There's a 16-second saxophone break in Aretha Franklin's Respect that might be the most valuable 16 seconds in R&B history. You know the moment. The bridge arrives, the horn step back, and King Curtis steps forward with a solo so tight and confident, it feels like it's holding the entire record together by itself. His name was Curtis Isley, Fort Worth, Texas. By 1967, he was the most in-demand session saxophonist in New York City. He played for Buddy Holly, the Coasters, John Lennon, Sam Cooke. But his greatest moment came on Valentine's Day, 1967, in a New York studio, when Aretha recorded Respect, and Curtis stepped in with 16 seconds built on chords he'd borrowed from a Sam and Dave session he'd played the night before. Respect went #1 on pop and R&B charts. It became an anthem for the civil rights and women's rights movements in a single recording. And that 16-second saxophone solo was sitting right in the middle of all of it. 4 years later, King Curtis was stabbed to death outside his Manhattan apartment building. He was 37 years old. Aretha Franklin sang at his funeral. The sign on the church door, written in her handwriting, read, "Soul is the ability to reach someone. It's being part of what today is all about." If you've ever heard that line and felt it in your chest, you understand exactly why King Curtis is on this list. Number 12, Bootsy Collins, Give Up the Funk, 1976. Before we go any further, I need to stop and talk about the bass. The guitar gets all the glory, the saxophone gets all the romance. But in R&B and funk, the bass is where the body lives. It's what makes your feet move before your brain decides to follow. And no one understood that more completely than Bootsy Collins. Parliament's Give Up the Funk from the album Mothership Connection. And Bootsy is doing something with that bass that has no business being that musical and that physical at the same time. That low-end groove you feel before the kick drum even hits, that's him. But here's the thing about Bootsy that never gets said loudly enough. Before Parliament, before George Clinton, before the Mothership, Bootsy Collins was James Brown's bass player. Are you ready? We need the bump. He was 17 years old when he joined the band. 17, and James Brown eventually let him go, said he was playing too many notes. George Clinton found him and gave him the entire universe. Give Up the Funk hit the top 5 on the R&B chart. But what it really did was permanently redefine what a bass player could be in R&B. Not a background texture, not rhythm support. The heartbeat, the main character. If you've ever felt a bass line hit you somewhere deeper than your ears and you couldn't explain to someone standing next to you why you couldn't stop moving, this is that moment. Number 11, Curtis Mayfield, Move On Up, 1970. There is a guitar sound so specifically Curtis Mayfield that when you hear it, it's like stepping into a different kind of air. Warmer, slower, like the afternoon is deliberately pulling everything down to half speed. Just move on up. Move On Up, from his debut solo album, Curtis. And that guitar line, climbing, fluttering, crying over itself, is Curtis pouring everything he couldn't say in words into a single extended passage. You probably know him as the voice of the impressions. People Get Ready, Keep On Pushing, that perfect falsetto that spoke directly to the soul of the civil rights movement. But here's what gets skipped over. Before the voice and before the message, there was the guitar. Curtis Mayfield played in a modified open tuning that he essentially invented himself. You couldn't replicate it. You had to learn his entire way of hearing the world first. Your folks might understand you by and by. Most musicians who tried said it felt like trying to learn someone else's native language from a dictionary. Move On Up never cracked the top 40 in America. In the UK, it became a cult anthem. From time to time, complications. And across the decades, musicians in every genre have sat down with that guitar track, pulled it apart, and come away saying the same thing. Some of it simply cannot be fully learned, only heard and felt. Number 10, George Benson, Breezin', 1976. There's a specific kind of genius that happens when someone is so far beyond good that the music industry genuinely doesn't know how to categorize them. George Benson was, without argument, one of the greatest jazz guitarists alive by the mid-1970s. He'd played with Miles Davis, Wes Montgomery, Jack McDuff. His technique was impeccable. His ear was extraordinary. And for years, the industry kept trying to sell him to the wrong audience. Then came 1976, Breezin', an instrumental album that did something no jazz or pop album had ever done simultaneously. It topped the pop, the R&B, and the jazz charts at the same time. 3 different charts, 1 album. But here's what's remarkable about Benson's guitar work on that record. The most technically demanding passages sound completely effortless, like he isn't trying. Like this is just what he does on a quiet Tuesday morning. There's a warmth in his playing that transforms mastery into something deeply personal. Like he's not showing you his technique, he's showing you his thought. Breeze In became the first jazz or pop album to sell over 2 million copies at the time of release. The Grammy for Best Pop Instrumental Performance came with it. But what stays with me is simpler than that. If you've ever watched someone do something impossibly difficult and make it look like breathing, that's George Benson. And you know what's strange? The more you listen, the more impossible it sounds. Number 8, Luther Vandross, A House Is Not a Home. Some vocal performances don't demonstrate skill. They expose something private, something that was never supposed to leave the room.
Not a home when there's no one there.
When Luther Vandross recorded his definitive version of A House Is Not a Home, Burt Bacharach and Hal David's 1964 standard, something unusual happens from the very first note. His voice isn't performing, it's confessing. Here's where Luther came from. Before his own name meant anything, he was one of the most in-demand background singers in New York City. He sang behind David Bowie, Diana Ross, Chic, Kiss. For years, he lived entirely in other people's spotlights. Carefully building toward a sound the world hadn't heard yet, waiting for a moment nobody had given him permission to have. And when he finally sang for himself, this is what came out. What makes this one of the greatest vocal solos in R&B history isn't the range, though the range is extraordinary. It's the phrasing, the specific way he lingers on certain syllables, backs away from others, as if he's deciding in real time exactly how much of himself to give the listener. The restraint is as profound as the power. If you've ever loved something so deeply that an empty house felt like a different thing entirely from just quiet, not lonely, just hollowed, Luther's voice on this recording meets you exactly there. It doesn't explain the feeling. It confirms it.
A chair is still a chair.
Number 7, Al Green, Love and Happiness, 1972.
Talking about she can make it.
There's a moment in Love and Happiness where Al Green holds a note so long with such complete stillness inside it that you stop hearing music and start hearing something else. High Records in Memphis, Tennessee, produced by Willie Mitchell. And Al Green's voice on this recording is doing something almost physically impossible. It sounds completely relaxed and completely on fire at the exact same time.
Wait a minute, something went wrong. Someone's on the phone.
Now, Al Green didn't write about complicated feelings. He wrote about simple ones: love, pain, joy, the things that make you late for work in the morning and can't close your eyes at 3 a.m. And Love and Happiness is the purest expression of all of them at once, wrapped around one of the most deceptively simple chord structures ever laid down in R&B. But it's his voice that stops everything. Some of y'all first heard this song somewhere very specific: a family gathering, a car late at night, a party you didn't expect to remember, and it just settled in somewhere permanent, and it's been there ever since.
And this is when you really feel good about something.
That's what a great solo does. It doesn't describe the feeling, it becomes it, and it never fully leaves. And whether you've been holding this one in your heart for 20 years or hearing it clearly for the first time right now, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Number 6, Marvin Gaye, Let's Get It On, 1973.
Since we got to be here.
If there is one vocal performance in R&B that made everything sound different the moment it existed, I'd argue it's the opening seconds of Let's Get It On, just Marvin Gaye's voice, and then nothing the same again. Co-written with Ed Townsend, and what Marvin does on this recording is almost impossible to describe technically. The runs, the breathiness, the sense that he's pulling you physically closer with every single phrase. Nothing mechanical about it, nothing rehearsed, just a man singing with everything he has about something he believed with his entire body. Here's what you probably didn't know. There is no electric guitar on Let's Get It On. What you think are guitar parts, those warm, layered sounds underneath the vocals, are vocal arrangements. Marvin sang them. He built the entire emotional architecture of the record with his voice as the only real instrument. Let's Get It On hit number 1 on both the pop and R&B charts in 1973, and it stayed. But the thing I keep coming back to is this. Put this song on in a quiet room, just listen, and Marvin's voice reaches across 50 years and sounds exactly as alive as the day he recorded it. That's not craft. That's something else entirely. Number 5, Aretha Franklin, Dr. Feelgood, 1967.
Would you believe I'll get up, put on some clothes?
It's 1967, Atlantic Records, New York City. Aretha Franklin sits down at the piano, a piano she's playing herself, and from the moment her hands touch the keys, everyone in that room understands that what's about to happen cannot be rehearsed or reproduced. Dr. Feelgood is a slow blues number she wrote for her debut Atlantic album, I Never Loved a Man the Way I Love You. And from the first note to the final exhale, there is not one layer of professional distance between Aretha and the listener. None. Here's what gets overlooked in every conversation about Aretha. She was a serious trained pianist before she was a recording artist. Shaped in her father, C.L. Franklin's church in Detroit, she'd been playing since childhood, building a technique that was entirely her own.
Sitting right there.
And when she plays on Dr. Feelgood, she doesn't play like someone accompanying a vocalist. She plays like someone who cannot keep the truth inside any longer. The combination, her hands on those keys, her voice in that room, is the definition of an artist who has made no separation between their life and their music. None at all.
Because company's all right with me.
If you've ever heard something and thought, this person has been exactly where they're singing about, this is that moment. This is Aretha proving it note by note without any distance between her and you.
Every once in a while.
Number 4, Whitney Houston, I Will Always Love You, 1992.
Darling, I love you.
You already know the note. You already know exactly which one I'm talking about. The one Whitney holds in, I Will Always Love You, before the final chorus. The one that shouldn't be humanly possible to sustain with that much control and that much raw, open emotion at the exact same time.
Yes, I will. Oh, yes, I will.
The one that made the whole world go quiet in 1992. Dolly Parton wrote this song in 1973, a beautiful country ballad. Whitney Houston didn't cover it. She transformed it. She took it somewhere it had never been and couldn't come back from.
I will always.
And here's what I keep returning to. That vocal, the a cappella opening, the building intensity, the key change, the final note everyone knows was built from something deeply specific. Whitney's voice came from church basements and choir lofts. It was shaped by a mother named Cissy Houston, who had sung backup for Elvis Presley and Aretha Franklin. This wasn't a technique, it was an inheritance.
Love you.
The song spent 14 weeks at number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100, one of the best-selling singles in history. But what stays with me is this. Whitney was 29 years old when she recorded that vocal. 29. And she sang like she had already lived through everything that love and loss can do to a person, like she already knew all of it, and she was telling you gently, so it wouldn't hit you all at once. I still don't understand how you arrive at that understanding that young, but she did. Number 3, Prince, Purple Rain, 1984. On August 3rd, 1983, at a benefit concert for the Minnesota Dance Theater at First Avenue in Minneapolis, Prince improvised a guitar solo that he had never played before and never played exactly the same way again.
I only wanna be some kind of friend.
That solo is what's on the record. That's what you've been hearing. The chord progression had been developed. The band had worked through the arrangement. But the guitar solo, the one Rolling Stone would later rank among the greatest ever recorded, was spontaneous. One take, live, in front of an audience. Stevie Nicks had already turned the song down. Prince sent her a 10-minute demo and she called him back. I can't do it. It's too much for me. So Prince went back to Minneapolis, walked out onto a stage, and somewhere around the 3-minute 48-second mark of a song about beautiful endings and unspoken things, he played something that can only be described as a man saying everything that language couldn't hold. Purple Rain peaked at number 2 on the Billboard Hot 100. The album sold over 25 million copies. Prince himself said the song scared him, called it his albatross. He'd carry it the rest of his career because you can't surpass something that honest. The only thing you can do is keep being the person who played it. Number 2, Michael Jackson, She's Out of My Life, 1979. Quincy Jones kept the crying. That's the whole story, really. That's the thing that makes this one of the most extraordinary vocal performances in R&B history. Love's not possession. Michael Jackson recorded She's Out of My Life somewhere between 8 and 11 takes. In every single take, he made it all the way to the end of the song and then broke down in tears. Not staged, not professional, actual tears every time. Tom Baller wrote the song about a real separation. Quincy Jones had held on to it for 3 years, waiting for exactly the right artist and exactly the right moment. He saw in Michael a specific kind of vulnerability, what he described as an open wound that pushed him toward greatness. And when Michael finished singing and started crying, Jones made the decision most producers in that situation wouldn't make. He left it in the record. Michael wrote about it later himself. I got too wrapped up in She's Out of My Life. I had been letting so much build up inside me. I was 21 years old, rich in some experiences, poor in moments of true joy. The song peaked at number 10 on the Hot 100, the 4th top 10 single from Off the Wall, making Michael Jackson the first solo artist in history to have 4 top 10 singles from a single album. She's out of my life. But here's what I think about. Anywhere in that final passage, you can hear him breaking. And somehow, impossibly, it sounds like a place you've been. That's what changes everything. Not the chart position, that. It's out of my hand. Number 1, Ray Charles, What Did I Say? 1959.
See the girl with the red dress on.
There are before and after moments in music history. What Did I Say is one of them. December 1958, Brownsville, Pennsylvania. Ray Charles and his band have played every song they know, and there are still 12 minutes left in the show. He turns to the band. I'm going to start something. I don't know where it's going. Just follow me. He turns to the Raelettes, his backup singers. Whatever I say, repeat it back.
I'm gonna tell your mama, tell your pa, gonna sing it back now.
He starts a low rolling riff on the electric piano. The band falls in. The call and response begins to build, and it builds until the room sounds like it's in church and somewhere else entirely at the same time. People rush the stage afterward asking where they could buy the record. What record? Ray said. He made it up on the spot. Recorded on February 18, 1959, released that summer, banned by both black and white radio stations for the suggestive moaning in the call and response. Ray Charles's response: when white artists later covered it, nobody banned theirs. That seems strange to me, as though white sex was cleaner than black sex. Number 1 on the R&B chart, number 6 on the Hot 100, his first gold record. Now listen to this. Paul McCartney said, "What Did I Say?" was the reason he wanted to make music. George Harrison attended a party in 1959 where the song played for 8 hours straight and later called it one of the best records he'd ever heard. When Mick Jagger performed in public for the first time with what would become the Rolling Stones, he sang "What Did I Say?" Rolling Stone magazine ranked it number 10 on the 500 greatest songs of all time. Ray Charles was blind since age 7. He sat at a piano he couldn't see, in a room he couldn't see, in front of people he couldn't see, and played something he had never played before, not because he meant to change everything, just because it was true.